Welcome back, I'm Inigo, this is Scrambled Kegs, and originally this was supposed to be not Let's Play number 3, where it's a not Let's Play and I play a game and talk about stuff. That game was supposed to be Fallout 4, you're seeing the gameplay footage right now, and I was going to talk about Season 2 of the TV show, and about how a vocal enough group or segment within the fan base is freaking out about how the show's apparently treating New Vegas, which, as we'll get to in the rest of the video, yeah, it's really not that bad. And I'm not trying to excuse the show's writing. Obviously, there's a bunch of stuff that really fucking stupid. Novak, the dinosaurs, like the other way around, really makes no sense. That was supposed to be like a watchtower looking out against the Legion versus like inside Novak, monitoring people. Brotherhood of Steel, they're acting like frat boys. Yeah, they're them seeing a bunch of old tech from Area 51, basically in pristine condition. They wouldn't blow that shit up. You know, House having a body double, I just assumed that was them dialing back on the casting on Season 1. And obviously the Caesar's Legion standoff. That would never happen with the game's Caesar's Legion. The moment Caesar died, or Caesar, they'd figure that shit out immediately. They wouldn't camp right next to each other and not end up killing each other. They'd find a way to somehow slit each other's throats at night and be done with it. Not wait 15 years. So instead, we're actually going to focus on, what's actually in the show, and the reason why I'm not playing a game while I'm talking about this, or at least playing it live, is because, how do I put this? When I was recording this for the first few times, I realized that it was a lot more involved and detail-oriented, that there's no way I'm going to be able to pay attention to the details and play the game at the same time, even if it's just, as you can see here, me wiping out the Raiders at the end of Fallout 4. Yeah, and the reason why I have Fallout 4 is because I'm gonna uninstall this game after this stuff, but basically everything else is just, I've done everything else. I've done all the major missions and side quests. What's left are the Raiders in the Nuka World DLC and curing Kate, so this is what you're seeing right now. So instead, we're gonna actually focus on what's actually in the show and what we can know for sure, because I rewatched the entire thing up until episode 6 and listed down every single detail that hints at what the New Vegas ending could have been canonically. And from the show, what's actually shared in the show, we actually know very little about what happened. And all of this is intentional. The showrunners, they made a smart, kind of stupid decision to not pick a canon ending. That way nobody's happy and nobody's like really mad, and just keep things vague and set. And so far they've been delivering on that. Nothing's really conclusive, and it also makes sense given the fact that just because, for example, obviously the NCR is going to have an upper hand, but to say that they're going to hold New Vegas forever and ever after that kind of doesn't make sense. Same thing if the Legion wins, same thing if House wins. 15 years in the Wasteland is a lot of time, and we're going to get into that in a minute. I'm getting ahead of myself, so yeah, let us actually get into this. Also, I'm skipping the end credit animations because, I know they hint at some of the details, but they're just not going to tell us anything conclusive. I'm also going to skip a lot of the pre-war plot details, because those aren't really relevant to the New Vegas ending, or at least I'm going to talk about them if they're relevant enough, as well as like any of the Fallout 4 stuff, or at least most of them, because this is a New Vegas video. So unless they're important or kind of connected, I'm not going to mention any of those at all, and yeah, let's get into it. But before we get into it, word from our sponsor, myself. If you do end up enjoying this video, do give it a like, give the channel a sub, and also check out my other stuff, like watch the videos, because in today's YouTube, that's how you tell the algorithm that you want to see more of this kind of content. So unless you actually do that, it's not going to show up in your homepage or your recommended on the side. So like, subscribe, watch my other stuff, really helps the channel grow. And without further ado, let's get right into it. Alright, let's break down everything we know about the canon ending of Fallout New Vegas, at least from the show's perspective, starting with Episode 1. Fact number 1. Novak is taken over by the cons. Yeah, that's it. That's everything we know about the ending of New Vegas, or at least what happens after New Vegas in Episode 1. No, literally, like, pause the video, or like, don't pause it, keep watching, because I need the retention. But also, if you go back to the show, Episode 1, this is the only thing revealed about what happens in New Vegas. And this is kind of a big deal, kind of not. But let's go over the implications first. So the first is that obviously everyone in Novak is either dead or driven away. Even the outskirts of Novak, nobody's there, even I think Nobark. And none of them probably joined the cons. This is a bigger deal. For the cons to move this far east, the following needs to be true. The powder gangers must be out of the picture. The NCR is gone or severely weakened, which we're getting a lot of, in the show. The Legion abandons the southeast part of the map, or they're too weak to enforce their control over their territory, and they cannot be allied with the cons. This is later revealed by Macaulay Culkin's character in episode 3. They're at war with the cons. If they're at war, why would they be friendly, right? And the Brotherhood could still be in the Hidden Valley, because there's no way the cons are going through inside that bunker. And to prove this, here's a map made about 10 months ago by Livid Shape 543 in Reddit, and this is a pretty good map, and painted the actual faction control areas. Okay, so that detail tells us a lot more than it realizes. So here's the cons in the show, and then this is Novak over here. So for them to actually get through here, there are 3 main areas, like 3 main ways you can do that. So there's a big mountain over here. There's no way anyone's going through that. Which means for them to get as far as Novak and have a small detachment over there, they need to go over here, north and then south, or like north to east and then south. They can cut through Hidden Valley, or they can go through Good Springs, Powder Ganger territory, and do Novak, and maybe mop up all these areas here. So this is probably this is why I say this is a big thing. For them to do that, NCR must lose control over here. The Fiends, they probably cut a deal with them because they don't really fight each other. But all of these, they're going to be gone. Right, whoever's controlling these, I think these are the Powder Gangers. Gone. Powder Gangers gone over here. Good Springs I'll probably keep or just live and let live. Hopefully. NCR probably lost control over here. Or maybe they've kept Helios 1. Who knows? But remember, this is a world where foot traffic is a thing. The cons don't really have vertebrates, so they really need control over the territory, which means Legion's probably stuck in Nelson. They just can't move that far west, and we don't know who's controlling these territories, which are basically so and so between Legion and NCR. There's an NCR attachment in Ranger Station Echo, Camp Searchlight, obviously, and then Legion's Cottonwood Cove and like a bunch of camps. Nipton, nobody's there, but yeah, that's Legion territory already. So this tells you a lot about what happens after for the Great Cons to be able to move. But it is just one detail in the show. Let's move on to episode 2. We saw the destruction of Shady Sands, that much is true. And that was pretty much it. And the implication of this, that it's really not conclusive with, the NCR victory, like an NCR defeat, because this was way back in the day, 5 years before New Vegas. And as we'll see later on, I think the NCR was able to function without Shady Sands. An argument can be made that maybe the reason why they wanted to take New Vegas so bad was because that was where they wanted to make the new capital in. Who knows? Let's move on to episode 3. This is the biggest lore dump that we're seeing so far. So I've grouped it into these factions. We'll start with the Legion. So Caesar's Legion is explicitly revealed to be in a civil war. That much is true. Now, exactly why there are 2 factions, I don't know, when there's just one successor. Why did they have to dig or split in 2? I don't know for sure, but anyways, move on. Caesar died and he wrote down his successor on his body, but fighting began before anyone could read it. Linnaeus' armor shows up, but Macaulay Culkin isn't necessarily Linnaeus. We haven't heard his name yet. The main camp moved from Fortification Hill to somewhere that's surrounded by hills. Fun fact, it's actually more reminiscent of Rome now, but I digress. We see the broken howitzer that, was in a Legion side quest. That was fixed. So I haven't played this side quest. I haven't done a legit Legion run yet, but that's one of the side quests, and Courier 6 did at least that mission. So we know for sure that Courier 6 somewhat helped the Legion, or at least did a few missions for the Legion. Again, the fact that the broken howitzer was fixed doesn't necessarily mean that Courier 6 helped the Legion through to the end. It just means he did that side quest. And this is kind of a big thing. When Cooper said the last holdout of the New California Republic, the Legion basically hyper-fixated on that detail and started mobilizing, which is kind of a big reveal if you think about it, because it implies that they don't have the capacity to send out scouting parties or hit squads like they used to in New Vegas. So the Legion is very much depleted in their manpower. Right, they've weakened significantly enough to where maybe there is a bigger legion much east in Arizona. We don't know, but maybe it's just the two factions fighting over the dead Caesar. Also, for them to not know this, it means that their whole intelligence arm collapsed in the Civil War. Or they're all the way over in the other side from, Macaulay Culkin's Lanius or whoever that character is. Like, it just so happens that in that other side of the Legion, that's where all the Frumentari are. Again, the detail here is that they have very little to no visibility on the newer California Republic, versus in New Vegas, they were clearly shown as infiltrating the highest ranks. Like, they were pretty high up there, infiltrating everyone. Now, speaking of the NCR, Camp Golf is hastily abandoned and not dusty, which indicates either recency or just production errors. I'll get to that in a minute. NCR Rangers are still in stranded outposts. There's this detail about the Ghoul and the NCR going way back, cut off from reinforcements for more than a decade. So NCR probably retreated as soon as the ending of New Vegas was, or they pulled back. We don't know for sure. But they pretty much abandoned these guys, which could just be the literal last outpost of the NCR, or it's just one of them. And there are many more of these outposts scattered around in and around New Vegas. Then other pieces of dialogue include when Shady Sands fell, we had a battalion out east. I was originally gonna map out like where this outpost was, but the show's geography is all over the place. We're not gonna talk about that. And also Shady Sands was more than 20 years ago, so that much is true. The show is set 15 years after New Vegas. Shady Sands was 20 years ago, so in the events of New Vegas, it's been 5 years after Shady Sands blew up. The NCR detachment knew that Shady Sands fell, and we can assume that all other NCR in the Mojave knew as well. So the fall of Shady Sands doesn't necessarily mean the fall of the larger NCR state or entity as a whole. It's just the fall of Shady Sands. Does it make things much more difficult for the NCR moving forward? Absolutely, but this is what we know for sure. The NCR is still a thing. How strong it is, we don't know. But blowing up Shady Sands didn't necessarily kill NCR. Maybe what happened in New Vegas did. Now let's move on to House. Victor is found in Gulf, but in a glitching state. He says it's been like that for like the last 10 years. So the exact quote was thinking he was a soda machine for a decade, but kind of unreliable since I did say someone did a number on his numbers. And Victor did mention that House's ultimate goals was to live forever. And the way he do that was he needed the cold fusion core, which Cooper got during the pre-war, and we actually see that in episode 6. We'll get to that a bit later. So based on this, we can infer that House's plan so far. Pre-war, he wanted to protect Vegas with missiles. In Fallout New Vegas, gain full control of New Vegas by kicking out the NCR and the Legion. Overall, and like in general, immortality via cold fusion, which is likely going to tie into his life support system that we actually see in New Vegas. And House detail over here, during Maximus and Xander's side quest, Securitron is showing glitching, and the armored soldier face on the screen is seen, implying that either someone, Thaddeus, hacked this one directly and just upgraded it himself. He has Brotherhood after all, and a bit more adept in tech, or Courier 6 ended up upgrading all of the Securitrons and some shit went down in the 15 years since the events of New Vegas. Again, 15 years is a lot of time for stuff to happen. Maybe Courier 6 upgraded everything and then things reverted back. We don't know. But we do know that at least that one Securitron went into soldier mode, which indicates an upgrade. And some extra lore. The Commonwealth is really powerful, given its ability to basically project its power across all of America, and keeping everyone in line, because if 4 chapters think they need to gang up to even stand a chance against the one big one, do the math. And also, Maximus doesn't know that the Commonwealth has super sledges that have rockets in them, implying that there's no open exchange of tech or much open communications between the Brotherhood chapters. Alright, let's talk about the implications. Legion doesn't really say anything about Legion win or defeat, at least not definitively, other than the fact that Courier 6 never healed Caesar, and Courier 6 presumably did the Howitzer repair side quest. Number 2, they could still be at Fortification Hill given the proximity of the Ghoul traveling back and forth between them and Camp Golf. The Ghoul famously kind of complains to Lucy in the next episode, I think, about the travel from one of the New Vegas gates to Freeside taking up like half a day or something. And obviously the Legion's ranks must have dwindled significantly given, again, the lack of visibility on the NCR situation, which indicates that their scouting capabilities or their intelligence arm, like the Frumentari, which the Legion is known to be very good at, is probably gone or severely diminished. They don't know what's happening. And that's the important detail that we need to keep in mind. Now, the NCR may have abandoned Camp Gaul for at least 10 years, and the lack of dust could either mean maybe it's a lot more recent, or it's just a production error. Because the show does do that. Some areas are dusty, some areas are not. Again, could be a thing, could be a production error. Moving on, the NCR were operating without Shady Sands, so they were able to function without Shady Sands in their capital. The fall of Shady Sands doesn't necessarily mean the same as the fall of the NCR. That's pretty much it. Moving on to House, Victor hasn't seen anyone in 10 years, which means there's at least 5 years of free roaming from the end of what happens in New Vegas, and the 10 years stuck in Camp Golf after that. But again, the 10 years could be unreliable given that even Victor doesn't know for sure, like, if he's broken or not. He is after all glitching. And House's plan so far: protect Vegas with missiles pre-war, Fallout New Vegas, gain full control of New Vegas by kicking out the NCR and the Legion, and his overall goals are immortality via cold fusion, using the life support system that he has, probably, that we see in New Vegas. Now moving on to episode 4, Deathclaws were confirmed to be existing pre-war. One was being transferred in Alaska, and up until this point, we've only gotten logs from the Enclave, from I think either Fallout 4 or Fallout 76. And obviously since Fallout 3, we know for sure that the Enclave has been experimenting a lot on Deathclaws. So the first time we actually see New Vegas in the present timeline, Lucy and the Ghoul see Securitrons blown up and the King's Ghoulified, likely in the West Gate, since the Ghoul mentions that they needed like a half day of travel to get around the city to get to Freeside. And once they come inside the strip, all Securitrons are dead and it's empty, but the lights are still on, which we're gonna get to in a minute. Lucky 38 also is right next to the Ultralux. In the game, there's a post office, between those two. The Ghoul also detects radiation as Lucy finds a Deathclaw egg. Deathclaw crawls out of the Gomorrah lobby, and that's pretty much it. That's all we know. So this episode is all about the Deathclaws, the fact that they existed before the war and that they've now infested New Vegas. Somehow the strip is also irradiated, as mentioned by the Ghoul. And I think this note is in episode 5, which we'll get to in a minute, but we don't actually see a lot of bodies or bones in and around the strip, and we know for sure as a fact that in the game New Vegas, the strip is well populated. So, episode 5, the Ghoul talks to a bartender who could be working at the former Atomic Wrangler. Like, that bartender says the Deathclaws came up from Quarry Junction. The bartender also mentions a merry-go-round of power, NCR Legion, fucking robots. Now it could be rambling, or it could be that the NCR held it first, then the Legion, then the NCR, then the Legion, then fucking robots. And fucking robots could hint at either a House ending or a Yes Man ending. And we see that Fisto is alive and well and doesn't appear to be working at the Atomic Wrangler anymore, so it's possible that the bar that the Ghoul went into, that may have been the former Atomic Wrangler. We don't know. Now the old lady that Lucy met in season 1 at the junkyard thing, the junkyard town, she says that the Khans took over Shady Sands territory when that lady was talking to Norm and Buds. So that's a bit of lore detail outside of New Vegas, where in the 15 years since the events of Fallout New Vegas, the Khans regained their strength and appear to be expanding, east up to at least Novak, and west up to Shady Sands territory. Freeside is alive and well and appears to be where all the residents of the strip kind of moved to for the most part. Some of them may have left the Mojave entirely, but it's a lot more alive in the show, and maybe that's how Freeside should have been if the game engine allowed it. Now, what are the implications? Again, many would jump on the wild card or Yes Man ending of Fallout New Vegas, but I'm more leaning towards sort of like the failed state approach, where regardless of who Courier 6 sided with, they got taken down immediately after or maybe a few years after. Because again, a lot of things happen in New Vegas and it's just like a few weeks. So literally a lot can happen in 15 years. What we know for sure is the fact that the strip is abandoned and is affected by Deathclaws and it's irradiated somehow. Because there was no radiation at all, maybe besides the water, in the strip during the events of Fallout New Vegas. And here's a note that I was mentioning earlier, there was a lack of NCR corpses or Legion corpses in the street, or any kind of Legion decor in the strip. So things like crucifixions, banners, flayed tribals, you know how the Legion dresses up stuff. Hipton. Moving on to episode 6, the super mutants may have been hunted down to extinction, at least in the West, or at least maybe in the Mojave, at least according to the super mutant played by Ron Perlman. And another non-New Vegas detail that was a bit of a big reveal, Vault-Tec is apparently controlled by the Enclave, as seen by the scientist at the start of episode 1, the one who was smuggling out the cold fusion thing with the dog, with dog meat. Yeah, he's apparently a pre-war scientist, or maybe the original one was pre-war and this was a clone. You know how fucky the Enclave tech is. Yeah, that's pretty much details shown in episode 6. Now the implications of these are that Ron Perlman could be playing Marcus, or may have been a super mutant from Jacobstown. And this is important because in New Vegas, if I'm not mistaken, there are at least 3 settlements of super mutants. Repcon for the Nightkin, Black Mountain for half super mutants, half Nightkins, but all of them are sort of like aggro, and Jacobstown, which is the non-aggro, rational, fully functional, and like fully still in there, non-insane super mutant. So Ron Perlman could be playing Marcus, or he could just be another super mutant from Jacobstown and that settlement got wiped out. And maybe when he says that they've wiped us out or something of that note, maybe he just meant Jacobstown. And yeah, that's pretty much all we know so far. So here's the tally. There's roughly like 31 individual details or factoids that hint at the ending of Fallout New Vegas. None of them really say anything conclusive or definitive about the ending. As a matter of fact, we don't even see whether House lives or dies. So that's probably one of the details that are binary. Like, for House to live, certain endings have to not happen. Because again, I've never done the Legion ending, but I believe when you're gonna kill House, you either have the option to like literally kill him with a weapon or like unplug his life support and just leave him there. But other than that, yeah, none of these really say anything conclusive or definitive about what could have happened in New Vegas. And again, 15 years is a lot of time. Most of them are also in episode 3, so we barely have, on average, like not a lot of details about what happened in New Vegas, and most of the details are actually in episode 3 and then right after. So what did we learn? Nothing. Yeah, this is a TV show that wants to focus on telling the story that it wants to, which revolves around, the super mutant manager's plot, maybe, the type of thing that Hank McLean is working on, the pre-war stuff, Lucy's arc, the Brotherhood arc, which, by the way, like apparently there's a new fan theory that the Legion infiltrated Maximus's Brotherhood chapter when they saw the writing on the wall, like that New Vegas was sort of like the lost cause. Well, yeah, I'm getting on a tangent. Anyways, the point of the show is to be a TV show, not to establish a definitive canon ending of New Vegas. Like, for them to do that, that's sort of like just a downstream effect of what the show is trying to achieve. And again, we go back to one of my original points where it's kind of crazy how people assume nothing would ever change in the 15 years from the events of New Vegas. Like, even now in 2026, like 15 years ago, 2011, a lot of shit happened. And it's not like one person could just literally turn New Vegas over its head over the course of a few days or a few weeks. Like, I don't know, Courier 6. And like, we know that obviously not to the extent of like the full power level of Courier 6, but there's a lot of characters in the Wasteland that can do these things. Like Hank did a megaton and blew up Shady Sands. Like, that couldn't happen in this Wasteland. And I think it speaks to the fact that I think a lot of people are too attached to whatever ending they have in New Vegas, whatever ending they identify with in New Vegas. Like, just because it's labeled as an ending doesn't mean that the story has to be and they lived happily ever after. Yeah, there's no such thing as that in the Wasteland. And again, 15 years, a lot of time for shit to happen. I'm not saying we should dick ride the show and gobble up Todd Howard's cock, but what I'm saying is take the show for what it is. If it's good, within its own bubble, each episode, each season, and the show as a whole, then great. But if they start to retcon a bunch of stuff that we all know to be not true, and it's just retconning for the sake of being edgy and ruining things that people enjoy, for whatever reason these writers feel like, because this is just what theater people do. They explore new ideas, they break things apart, and then create something new. If that happens, and they really break the lore, then yeah, I guess maybe us fans should just stop watching these shows and start making them make Amazon lose tons of money. And Jeff Bezos isn't gonna like that. But for what it's worth, I mean, with regards to just the ending of New Vegas, again, props to the writing team, but they did give us a non-ending where anything could still happen, even though certain events are kind of canon. Again, the Howitzer thing, not curing Caesar, all of that kind of happens in the background. But with regards to like whether House wins, or it's the Yes Man ending, or the NCR one, or the Legion one, all we know for sure is that the Great Khans are winning. There's that. Look, obviously Todd Howard's still salty about New Vegas and how much more of a great success it still is, that it's a thing that he cannot beat, if that's the right word, or at least rise up to. But I don't think the show is his way of burying New Vegas, the game. So there's really no need to panic about New Vegas just yet, or like the ending, or like Fallout, Tower ruining New Vegas, anything like that. At least not yet. We still have 2 more episodes to go in this season, and probably a few more seasons after this one. And obviously the games are gonna still come out. Also, nothing definitive yet. We still have 2 episodes to go until season 2 ends, and I may end up doing a follow-up video on like just to recap everything that we know about New Vegas once the season's over. Hope you stick around for that. So if you're up for it, just do what I'm gonna plan to do and just be cautiously optimistic about these things, the show and the games moving forward. I'm gonna check it out, and if it's good, I'll decide that it's good. If it's bad, I'm just gonna not deal with it. But you do you. For me, I'm not freaking out about how the show's treating New Vegas, even though some parts are weird. Again, Novak, the Brotherhood, and the Legion. Anyways, that's gonna be it for me for now. If you've enjoyed this one and you want to see more of these videos, give this video a like, maybe sub to the channel, and check out my other stuff too. Let the algorithm know that, hey, I want to see more from this guy. So again, thanks for watching, and that's gonna be it. Hope you've enjoyed the video. I'm Inigo, signing off for now. Bye!